Okay. So it starts with reading and reading extensively. So we normally start by identifying a broad research area. Okay, a broad research area. This is where we begin. Um, the example I can give, which I give on the recording, I remember, I think one person who gave an example, if I can remember the example that we discussed in that class. And I remember, I think yes, somebody asked that if you recognize, let's say there's a system that is not being effectively used at Uganda Matters, but maybe elsewhere it is, how can that become a research problem because it only exists in UMU? Then I said broaden it, make it general. Look at efficient system use in institutions of higher learning. Then start from there. So you start from identifying that global research problem, but not too global. Okay, not too global. Not too global. Sorry. Give me a minute. Increase something else. Give me a minute. Give me a minute, please. Sorry, I started from the wrong slide. Hold on. Okay, so this is where I should have begun. What is a research problem? Because that's where we said we want to begin on we want to understand that the research begins from a research problem. Sorry, let me first put this in slide mode. So we also discussed on what are the two types of research problems, and we said there are those which are related to state, that the nature of something. I think for example, if we look at the paper that was discussed the most yesterday, was basically trying to describe or introduce to us a new research methodology, and that was typically one of them. That one was looking at the nature of that research problem. Then there are those which are related to relationships between problems, which are looking at relationships between variables. Take an example: lack of chemical fertilizer is the main cause of low production of grain. So now, if you look at these two, they're essentially pointing to the two research philosophies that we discussed earlier in the very first lecture that we had. So a research problem is normally experienced by an entity, so an individual, a group, or an organization. Yeah. So, and the research problem, when you look at it, there's some objective that needs to be attained. Take an example. The reason for the paper that was mostly discussed yesterday, the reason for that, those group of those researchers deciding to redefine design science was to be able to design these meter systems, or rather improve on existing meter systems. That was the main objective. Yeah. So they redesigned this methodology for the sake of the other. So like they said, there are alternative means for attaining that objective. Yeah. There are other ways you can obtain this objective, but the researcher has picked a particular way. And one of the things I wanted to point out is that sometimes when you're being challenged in your research, they will say, why didn't you use this method? Why didn't you use this? But you specifically chose to use a certain method. Now you find even further research. Someone else will say, okay, these people decided to redesign a methodology in order to attain this. we said, what if I use the same methodology and see if I can improve on an existing system? Okay, let me try it and see if what they are claiming is right. That's also an alternative objective someone gets. So research is simply building on what others have built. Yeah. Let me move this again. So I have to keep moving this from different places so that I can see what I'm doing. Some do's and don'ts, things to help us guide when we're selecting our research problem. Avoid things that have been overdone, controversial topics, something that is too narrow or too vague. But all of these, you'll be helped by your supervisor as you go through them, as you develop your research problem. How some techniques that can help you define. First, start by stating your problem in a general way. Again, I refer you to the example we did in the previous class. I think it was Emmanuel Kaluya who raised that point of if I've seen something in UMU, but it only exists in UMU, maybe in another university it works well. What do I do? This is where we start by generalizing. Then understanding the nature of the problem. How do we understand by literature review? We survey the literature. We read and read and read. Then we develop ideas through discussion. Sometimes it's just through writing. As you're reading, you can write an idea that comes to your mind. Write it down. And then rephrase the problem and rephrasing the research problem into something, a working proposition. So basically, that's what a research problem is. It's a working proposition saying literature indicates this, and we have this challenge. So I'm saying to close this gap, let me do ABCD. Let me do ABCD to be able to close this gap. And again, we went through a number of things in our class discussion. Please go back to that. So here we have some examples of a broad study area. So pick something that is of interest to you. So someone may say, I want to look at ICT governance, cybersecurity. Then I will say or interoperability, ICT and human-computer interaction. That is my research interest. Then I come into the sub-areas, dissect this broad area into sub-areas. So for example, for cybersecurity, someone may say, I want to look at network security or database or something. What is it? Make sure that whatever area you're selecting is something that is of interest to you, not your supervisor, but you. Because the minute you try to go into your supervisor's interest, then you're lost, because it's you going to carry that load. Then rephrase your research problem into a research problem. And here we have an example of such a research question. I think we went through it in detail in that recording. Please go back and look at it. Here was the example is, what effect does daily use of Twitter have on attention span of 16-year-olds? And we went ahead and subdivided that into sub-objectives. Please look at that recording. Now we have research questions can be qualitative or quantitative. So first of all, a qualitative research question does not assume anything. Yeah, does not assume anything. Typically, this question, what effect does daily use of Twitter have on attention span? It's not assuming anything. It's going out to find out, explore. So that's a typical qualitative research question. So you're thinking, what is the broadest question I can ask? So again, this is a broad question. What effect? We don't know. They could be positive, they could be negative, there could be no effect at all. So we want to find out if there is actually an effect. Usually qualitative research questions start with things like what, how, or in what ways. That implies exploration. Yeah. When a question starts with why, it implies there's a cause and an effect. Why does Sheba come? Why is Sheba coming late for classes? Meaning we are looking for the cause of Sheba's lateness. So, but however, it must be a qualitative research question is explorative in nature. You're seeking to understand, to discover, to generate. Avoid using things like effect cause. What things influence? The influence of late coming and Sheba's teaching style. That is now going to quantitative side. The quantitative side. Here are examples of some research, qualitative research questions. What factors would affect adoption of IS innovations in an organization? How would you adopt enterprise architecture? How would adoption of enterprise architecture affect processes in government entities? What factors would affect interoperability of healthcare systems? All of these are explorative in nature. Now, I'll give you an example, even for UIS students, where something like this, especially if you're designing an artifact. So take an example, what factors would affect adoption of an AIS innovation in an organization? So a student might say, I want to look at what would affect, let's say, in a university like UMO. So the student designs an IS artifact. You go through the process of designing it, implement it, then evaluate. Okay, design, implement it, and evaluate. And when I say design, I don't mean design something from scratch, because at master's level, most of us are concerned that you may be misled in thinking it's the same thing as undergraduate level where they are looking for your programming skills. No, at master's level, we are looking for your research skills. So you can even have a system that is already in existence or has been designed by someone else. You simply present the system and its features, implement it, then evaluate. Okay? Implement it and evaluate. Same thing with the enterprise architecture, the same thing, design something, design a framework, then examine its effect on government, on ICT processes. Yeah, something like that. It's the same question. It's doing exactly. It can fit exactly within the ICT, IS, and forensics research areas. So the qualitative research questions usually have a central research question, which is subdivided into sub-questions. And when you answer each of these questions, they help you answer the overall research problem. So again, that example we used where we demonstrated in the recording for last week demonstrates this very well. Okay? Normally, our research questions, the exploratory verb we use normally also points to the methodology we want to have. When we say we want to discover, that's normally grounded theory, because you're basically looking for something from scratch, which is quite rare in ICT and IS and at master's level. When you seek to understand, it means that when you seek to understand, you're trying to understand a reality that is not yours, a reality that is not yours or does not exist in a community. Okay? So I'll give you an example. My research was looking at one of the things that I read when I was doing my literature review about sustainability of ICT4D in developing contexts. One of the things that I read, most people were saying that ICT4D designers do not understand the developing context, because normally the person who is designing the system comes from a developed world or a developed community. So take an example, each one of you would be considered, as much as we're all Ugandans, but not all of us are from the same context. Okay, we're not from the same context. So I'll give you an example. I think I gave this example before. I don't know in which group, but I'll give it again. When I was doing my research, I had no idea. It had not dawned on me that there are a number of mobile phone users in rural areas that don't actually know how to use it. They have very limited knowledge on how to use the mobile phone, and yet here was the Ministry of Healthcare of Health, the Ministry of Health, together with USAID, coming to implement a mobile application to be used by community members. And it was in that time that I discovered that they couldn't even use the SMS application on these Kabiriti phones. So that was a typical example of you're seeking to understand a context that you don't understand. Now imagine me, who is a fellow Ugandan. What about someone who comes from the Western world, has designed an application and is expecting these people to use it? Now, a methodology like ethnography comes in. When we talk about methodologies, we'll understand some of these methodologies. So ethnography is one where someone seeks to understand a culture, a context that they do not understand. Now, sometimes people think this is only done with rural areas, but it can also be done within organizations. Yeah, there are certain organizational cultures that are completely different from others. I remember there was one of our colleagues. He left us. He was at Uganda Matters University. I remember his area of expertise was human resource management, and he said that in terms of HR, organizational cultures are completely differ. So he said that he was giving a talk. At that time, he was working for Uganda Matters. He was giving a talk in another university, and he said, if you want to understand how different cultures are, he said, you come to Uganda Matters University, say, for example, on the 18th of October. To every other person, 18th October doesn't mean anything. But to Uganda Matters University, it means a lot. Why? Because that is the day the Uganda Matters were canonized. Yeah. So in Uganda Matters, it's called University Day. There is mass. There are no lectures. It's really a big, big day. Go to another. If you are working for MTN, it doesn't mean anything. If you are at Makerere University, that day doesn't mean anything. So you find again, each organization has its own culture, its own culture. So ethnography, even sometimes I've even seen IS research using ethnography. So there are situations where you seek to understand a context. If you're going to explore a process, the case study is extremely important. Then we describe, if we want to describe experiences, that is phenomenology. And again, case study comes in that one. Report stories, the narrative research. Here are just some common problems that you may encounter as you identify a research problem. Deciding which area to look at from a range of issues that interest you. And this is where reading literature and also discussing with your supervisor becomes important. Not being able to think of an area or topic that you find sufficiently interesting. Now, this one can be problematic, but again, reading is important. And then reading, an area will come out that you understand. Knowing which area you want to focus on. For example, is it education? Is it healthcare? Do I want to look at networking? What is the specific? Knowing what area or topic, but finding it difficult to clearly articulate a question. Again, these are all issues you can resolve with your supervisor, discussing with people who are experts in that area. Let me first move this so that we can see this. I can see this clearly. Focusing your research question on exploring, understanding, gathering participants' perception, open, flexible responses. You're not proving, not measuring, you don't have a strong hypothesis. So hypothesis, we're going to discuss that in a few minutes when we come to quantitative research questions. Asking the right, how are things being done? How do people's perspectives? These are just examples of things that you can ask as we formulate qualitative research questions. What factors contribute to? In what ways do people view? So these are all seeking to understand, to explore. So you can have descriptive research questions that ask about what actually happened. Interpretive, they're asking about the meaning of what happened to those involved. Then theoretical, ask about why those things happened. There are good research questions and bad ones. A good one is specific, focuses your research, requires you to answer a research, requires the research to answer. When I say requires the research to answer, like for example, someone asked that, someone may say, what is the distance between the Earth and the Moon? Well, you may find Google can help you answer that question very well. You don't need to actually do research. And when I say by research, someone can say, by the time I've Googled, I've researched. No, you haven't. Even my 12-year-old nephew can do that. But when we say research, it means we do literature review, we formulate a research problem, we identify a research method, we collect data, we analyze, present. Yeah. So it requires that kind of research. It can be measured, answered through research, important to the field. So this is where literature review becomes very important, that my research is important to a certain field. Yeah. Now, here I want to point out something for you as research, as ICT, IS, forensic students. Your research must be important to your field. Yeah, must be important to your field. What do I mean? Someone may have, let's say, a question like, or an objective like improving someone may have an effect, something like let me put this, improving marks, improving cognitive abilities of students by using ICT. Or so you say, I want to use ICT to improve the cognitive abilities of ICT. Now the question is, that question from an IS or an ICT perspective, or is that or an education perspective?
I think it is from the education perspective.
Thank you very much, Pius. That's from an education perspective, not from an ICT perspective. So you must think in terms of your field, not education, in terms of your field. I think it was, on which day was it? Friday? No, sorry, yesterday was Friday. I think it was Thursday. Yes, Thursday. I had a discussion with a PhD student, and when we were discussing him and another supervisor, and he was saying, we were asking him, what literature, where would you like your first paper to come from? And he started saying he wants to do research on, I think it is big data analytics and SDGs. SDGs are the Sustainable Development Goals. So he said, I want to read more on SDGs. And immediately both of us, the supervisors said no. Remember your field. If you start going in SDGs, you're going in a field that is not yours, and you will step on things that you shouldn't step on. So So make sure it is within your field. Make sure that your perspective is within your field. Yeah. So you can even ask the other research question would have been better, let's say, asking what e-learning system can be used to improve cognitive abilities. So there you're focusing on designing, not on improving, but designing something which is geared towards cognitive abilities. So your question is looking at what functional features should I have to support this? Not that you are going to actually measure whether somebody has picked or not. No. You're going to be looking for features system features that will support that kind of work. Yes, you will touch something in education, but your interest will only be on the ICT side. So remember, again, important too, it should be important to your field. And then not just also on that perspective, when I also say important to a field, the field also is done which lets you know where the gap is. That's why reading becomes very, very important. And reading from your field, not from somebody else's, not from education, not from agriculture, but your field. The other field can come in maybe to describe the domain, but not to that's not what you're evaluating. You're not evaluating agriculture, you're not evaluating healthcare, you're evaluating your system. It should be manageable, not too broad, not too narrow. So this is something that you achieve together with your supervisor. Here are just some examples of problematic research questions. What is the best way to teach ELS oral skills? What is the best way to teach? This one becomes very, very problematic. It is it's automatically making an assumption, even if it is saying what is the best way. If it's beginning with what is. Why? Let me just show you a better way to rephrase that. What are the characteristics of oral English language instructions provided? This one is more exploratory in nature. Now, here is the difference with this other one. What is the best way to teach ELS oral skills? One, it would be better. Let me phrase this in another way. If you ask this question, what would be the result? What would be the result? The result, it would be impossible to point out what is the best. Why? For one teacher, one way may be better than another. For one student, one way may be better than another. And when you're exploring, there are people with different experiences and realities. So in the end, you will not be able to get the best way to teach ELS oral skills. You will not have the best way to teach because different contexts, different experiences. So that this question cannot give you the best way. So that is one way of looking at it. Look at this one. What can we do to teach English to students effectively? Again, it's the same thing. The students are different. There are some students who do better with practicals. There are others who do better teaching, learning independently. There are those who do better with others in groups. There are those who do better as alone. So how do you say this is the most effective? Yeah. Do Korean English teachers use Korean when they teach English? This one is a yes or no. It's a yes or no. So it doesn't, it has no, there's very little you're going to get out of it. There's nothing thorough that you're bringing out of it. Does working in groups contribute to learners' to learners' ability reflect on their own language learning abilities and need to study more? This one is too broad. It's even too lengthy to understand what you want to get out. Do Korean English teachers enjoy their job? Again, this is a typical example of something that gives you little or no answers. So here are some examples which would give you something a lot more, gives you room for thorough research. What are the characteristics of oral English language instruction provided to 10th grade ELs at a public school? So here you will be bringing out a range of characteristics, a proper description, that can be used by researchers and maybe policymakers and so on and so forth. You realize it's going to give you a lot more than the previous questions like this. Do Korean English teachers enjoy their job? It's either yes or no. Doesn't give you much. What is the impact of explicit writing strategy instructions for a group of 5th grade? And again, this gives you thorough room for research, and so on and so forth. So ways how we can, the tips that can help you guide your formulation process. Avoid a question that will give you a yes or no answer. Ask questions that are neutral, exploratory language, using neutral exploratory language that does not convey a conclusion. Design and write 2 questions, central and sub-questions. Don't worry too much about the beginning. Questions often change throughout planning. Yeah. So again, this is where we start from. These ones I won't go through much to them because we actually did a practical on the recording. So you can go back and review that. So let's just look at general guidelines for writing literature, or actually, how would I go about beginning to read? So let us say we are talking about our previous topic, that the question we looked at of Twitter. We are looking, the broad general area is looking at social media and its effect on the younger generation of our communities, on children, basically. Social media use and children. So you'd start from the broad area of social media. You start looking for literature on that, but what is social media in general? When did it begin to emerge? What are the effects we're hearing about it on users? What are the good and bad points? And then we begin to talk about social media users themselves, then specifically the younger children. What are they using it for? Is it being used in education? Is it being used in healthcare by children, and so on and so forth? And then the effects, what has been reported so far. That's starting from the very broad area. And then we begin to narrow down to our specific topic. Now, as you're reading, as you begin to collect data, as you begin to collect publications, there's a lot that you will find. At a certain point, you have to stop and push away what is unnecessary. Remember, your research area, your research topic, or your research problem has to be very specific with an answerable question. So discard of anything that is irrelevant. Again, work closely with your supervisor to help you narrow down to a specific area. look at the variables that you are focusing on. So, for example, if we go back to the Twitter question, you're looking at Twitter, you're looking at social media, you're looking at its effect on children as users. Yeah. So those are three very specific variables that you're looking at. So begin to look for literature in those areas. When you start searching on Google Scholar, look in those specific areas. Then plan how you will structure your literature review and write from this plan. So take here as an example. You can start with the topical order. You organize by main topics, issues emphasizing the relationships on those main issues. Chronological order. Here you're organizing literatures according to the dates of research. So one of the key most important things is your area of research, what you're researching, you try your level best to bring out the state of the art. So, for example, if I am referencing a definition, that one I don't necessarily have to paper that. But if I'm researching on what is the latest research on social media use and its effect on users, specifically children, I should be bringing the state of the art, which means the most recent research that has been done. So, for example, if in 2025 you're looking at that topic, your literature review on that space on effects on users should be between 2020 and 2025, 2021, 2022, that kind of thing. The latest research that has been done. Yeah. The problem cause solution or the organized reviews that moves it from the problem to the solution. So giving kind of a chronological order of on this issue, they started researching on the effect, they started researching on this, and this is where it was being defined. Then these ones moved further to this to try and bring up a solution, but this is where they stopped. And then when you're bringing out the problem, this is when you start to say, this is what has not been done, and this is what I want to focus on. Organize from general to specific. It's called, that is the funnel effect. Again, remember, like I said, we started with the general, what is social media, what technologies are there, so on and so forth. And then you move down to effects, and effects on who? Children. There's effect to any user, even me, an adult, but we want to focus specifically on children. You're narrowing down. Then you can also organize from specific to general. Yeah. After you've reviewed your literature, summarize what has been done, what has not been done, what needs to be done. Remember, you're arguing your point of why your study is important. This is why literature review is extremely important. Why is your research important? Why should we even listen to it? Then after that, pose the formal research question or hypothesis. All sources of cited literature must be listed. This one is extremely important. We do not want to be accused of plagiarism. Okay? That is why at most universities, once a thesis is handed in your dissertation, it is tested for plagiarism using anti-plagiarism software. Literature review isn't logically organized. So this, when you don't organize your literature review clearly. Now, one of the things I want to have, not today, but one of the tricks I want to show you is creating a chapter structure. Creating a chapter structure is extremely important because it helps you logically organize your ideas. And once you have you've downloaded your articles, you've read through them, you will know, oh, I can use this article as a reference in this section. I can use this article as a reference here, and so on and so forth. So, is there any question? No, I don't think so. So why is it important for these areas of not organizing reviews don't relate to literature, too few references, and so on and so forth? The issue is plagiarism. So literature review basically is helping us avoid the issue of plagiarism. And respect, not just doing the literature review, but also respecting it. So the literature review is not there for me to write verbatim what so and so said. No, it is there to help me formulate my ideas, but I back up based on somebody else's words. Okay, I back up and I cite. I say, this is my idea, and I've developed it in such a way. So and so reported this, so and so reported that, so and so reported this. Based on that, the idea of this research is to do ABCD. Based on what these ones have said, the idea of this research is to do ABCD. Okay? So that covers that topic of the introduction to research problem formulation, and then qualitative research questions and literature review. Yes, Emmanuel.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I request you go back to the previous slide. The previous slide.
Sorry. Let me first. Okay.
Yes, that one. I think it's the next one where I have seen that citing source without putting quotations. There are different ways of making reported speech.
Yes.
Where I can quote exactly the words someone said by putting them in quotation marks, or reporting without putting them in question marks. I just say, maybe Dr. Shiba said that this, and this, without putting them in quotation.
Yes.
Is that plagiarism?
Is that sorry? I didn't get the last part.
Is that also
plagiarism? Okay, now
I'm saying yes.
Okay, give me a minute.
I'm saying when we are making.
Yes, please continue the question as I look for something to show you as an example. Continue with the question.
All right. I'm saying that there are two different ways of making reported speech, where the first way you can quote exactly what someone said. Like I could say, Dr. Shiba said, comma, I open quotations, then I put the very words Dr. Shiba said. And then the other way, I could say, Dr. Shiba said that this, and this. Is that when I use that second way without quoting, but I'm still giving a reported speech?
Yes.
Does it tantamount to?
Does it tantamount to
plagiarism?
Is it plagiarism? Okay. Let me show you an example. So you see this, eh? Are you seeing the screen?
Yes, Doctor, I can see on my side.
Yeah. Okay. So you see in this case, I quoted this individual and put it in quotation marks, eh? But the important, what makes it or does not make it plagiarism? What does not make it plagiarism? I referenced. Yeah?
Yes.
I referenced. I said they defines, this is me acknowledging the source is what it is not plagiarism, just that alone. Now, the reason I use quotation marks is because I am reporting verbatim exactly what the person wrote. Yeah. Now, when I don't use quotation marks, take an example. Yeah, it's a development has been defined, but it is important to understand that the distinction is the priority they give to specific development goals. So yeah, if I say development has been defined, but it's important to understand there are range of meanings ascribed to the term, some of which may overlap. The distinction is the priority they give to a specific development goal. This was supposed to go, that was a mistake, to a specific development goal. And here I reference this person, these individuals. By the time it's etal, they are individuals. Now, here, what do you mean? These people, these individuals said more, but I simply paraphrased. Now, what is it that ensures it's not plagiarism? I acknowledge the source. Yeah? Do you get the difference?
Yes, I get.
Yes, Kaluya. You have a question? Kaluya,
Yes,
then
Doctor, I have.
Epistle. Yes,
Just back to the presentation we're using.
hold on a second. Let me get
Just,
back.
Doctor, just back to the presentation we're using.
Let me share the screen again. Give me a minute. Yes, please. Can you now see the screen?
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Now the previous slide before this one.
Okay.
I don't know whether it's this one. There is a slide where you were talking about things not to do in research, where you said one of the bullets was using outdated literature.
Let's see. Was it this area, I think?
I think the next
Yes.
slide. There was something about using outdated literature.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. But please
So
go on. I can still answer.
So I would like to know what is considered outdated literature.
Yes.
Because if everything is talking about a particular subject, why does other literature come outdated?
Okay. Now, this is where it is important.
Can I answer?
Please. Yes, please.
Thank you, my brother, for raising that question. Now, one, about outdated literature, for instance, I always prefer that we use 5 years and not more. And there is one. For example, in areas of ICT, forensics, and computer science, or science generally, there are always a lot of developments. So you'll find that something that, or you find that a research paper of 10 years ago, if you were to review it today, it would look like common sense knowledge. So I think that's why they always prefer that we use the recent documents.
Yes.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much. Now, let me even be more specific. When we say outdated, it depends on what it is you're referencing. So take an example. If you are defining what a case study research strategy is, you can quote someone who defined it maybe in 1986. That is okay. Case study remains a case study. But however, if it's specifically about your research problem, like you said, if it's computer forensics, if you are doing research on, if your research problem is on e-learning in universities, adoption or something like that, we should not be seeing you talking about a reference of 1986. Okay, we want to know the current, what is currently being done. What is currently being done? That is why we need to see within the last 5 years. Yeah, you shouldn't be referencing something that has been done in 1986 or 1990. What is currently being done? What research has been done as of now? If it is the generic things of what is a computer, you can quote something from 2001. But if we are looking at your specific research area, it should be current. Your research problem, it should be the current situation. Because otherwise, you are bringing things that have been done and that have probably been, you're not showing what has been done so far. Have I answered the question? I think has the question been answered?
Yes, the question has been answered, but only that there are some fields that I would say are not so much researched. For example, if you look at AI in this day and age where we are, I've not taken the trouble to look at how much literature is available concerning AI, but I don't think it may be viable if you're saying you must have enough research to read and you're limiting yourself to about 3 or 5 years. What if it's a field that is not well researched within a given period of time?
One, if it hasn't been researched, that means there isn't much literature. There isn't much literature on it. And even if you say it is something like AI, at this time, something has been written. So and what has been written, they are talking about what needs to be known. So take an example. If let's say you're going to do research, you're going to research on AI. I'm sure there are people who have published asking questions of what needs to be known. There are things that are yet unknown about AI. And those publications are the best to reference, because by the time they're telling you this is not known yet, and therefore you say, therefore my research is going to focus on this. We are going to try and close this gap. Have I answered your question?
Yes, Doctor. Thank you very much.
Okay. Topista.
So basically, I think you already answered mine, but I just wanted more clarity about the citation bit. So when we paraphrase someone's work, we must still cite their work because we used some of their words, or
Yes.
if we paraphrase, we should not cite.
Yes, if as long as you use their ideas, reference, cite them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, let's stop sharing. Let's look at hypothesis. Okay, let's look at formulation of hypothesis, which is the other side, the quantitative side. So what is a hypothesis? Yeah. So basically, a hypothesis is a statement. It's a statement which is implying a solution. But in other words, when you make the statement, that statement must be verified. That statement must be verified. It is implying that it's a solution where I said this causes this leads to the effect, causes this effect on this. I'm making a statement, but that statement is begging to be verified. Yeah, it's begging to be verified. So now a hypothesis can be conceptual. There's some kind of conceptual element, in the frameworks that are involved in a hypothesis, then it can be a verbal statement in a declarative form. You're declaring something, like take an example, I say, if I say Twitter has a negative effect has a negative effect on children's relationship with their parents. That is, I'm making a declaration, but that declaration needs to be proved. It represents a relationship between two or more variables. So just like the example I've given you, Twitter having a negative effect on the relationship between children and their parents. So we are talking about Twitter and its effect on a relationship between parents. Those are two variables. Twitter, yes, please. Was there a question? Okay, let's move on. It is a forward or future oriented. So when you make the statement, it's saying there needs to be verification. I need to prove. So it also pivots a scientific research. All activities are designed for verification of the hypothesis. What is the function of a hypothesis? It's a temporary solution of a problem. Temporary, keyword is temporary. You are asserting a claim, but which claim needs to be verified. It offers a basis for a study. So it's offering a basis which we're saying we're making this assertion and we need to now formulate methodology, rather identify the methodology, how we're going to prove or disprove this thing. This may lead to formulation of another hypothesis at the end of the study. The preliminary hypothesis may take the shape of a final hypothesis. Now, there's one article nobody looked at. I hope that the two individuals who are left will tackle it. The one which is focusing on multitasking, it's a very good example of use of hypothesis. The researchers had research questions, and then they also formulated hypotheses, which they then went ahead to prove or disprove. Yeah. So look at that article as well. It's very, very informative on hypothesis, and it's in the field of IS. So each hypothesis provides the investigator with a definitive statement to be tested. It delimits the field of investigation. That's the key point. The hypothesis really lets you know, these are my limits. This is what I'm going to focus on and nothing else, nothing outside of that. Now, this is very unlike the qualitative research questions, which are not limiting. They are very open. What you find is what you'll find. But this one is limiting you to two or more variables. That's it. Beyond that, the cause and effect, that's it. Why are hypotheses important? They guide the investigator, that delimiting effect they have. They guide the investigator that this is what I'm going to focus on and nothing more. It also focuses the research. Yeah, in that process, it focuses the research that you don't go outside of your limits. Of course, in the process, you may miss out other things, but that is the key point of quantitative research, of being very specific, and then somebody else can do research on another area. Where someone says, so-and-so's research focused on this, mine will focus on this. It may be neglected to look at the nature or something of this thing, so I want to focus on more areas. It gives very, very specific and clear goals. Linkages, because we are trying to find relationship between variables. It creates those linkages. Prevents blind research. But then again, the qualitative research, I will say, if there's an area which is quite new. Blind research is necessary. It's a guiding light, again, because it focuses the research. There are different forms of hypothesis. So a hypothesis can be stated as a question. Again, if you want an example of that, look at that article, Multitasking. Yeah? So look at that example. It's a very good, that article gives a very good example. A hypothesis can be declared, a declarative statement. So in that case, it provides an anticipated relationship or differences. So here, I've given you some sample questions from the multitasking article. To what extent does IT-related multitasking influence hedonic experience? Does this effect vary according to individuals' traits? And then these are the hypotheses they developed from those two questions. So again, please look at them. Please look at that article and how the researchers tackled. We have directional hypothesis. So directional hypothesis is already insinuating a relationship between variables. So it is anticipating, looking for evidence of this relationship. Then we also have non-directional or null hypothesis. So the hypothesis is stated in a null form, which is an assertion that no relationship exists between or among the variables. Things that may affect you as you formulate the hypothesis. If you have a poorly chosen or poorly worded hypothesis, you may end up not getting enough data or data that is sufficient to prove or disprove. Drawing, or you may fail to draw conclusions or make generalizations. Application of certain statistical measures in the analysis of the results. You may end up failing to analyze your data, the collected data. What are some of the difficulties in formulation of a useful hypothesis? Absence of knowledge of a clear theoretical framework. Now, let me talk about a theoretical framework because it's extremely important even when you're doing qualitative research. When we are doing our research, the things that guide us on how we are going to tackle a research problem, we really need a theoretical framework. Why? The theoretical framework guides you on how you're going to tackle your problem. What will guide you? Take an example. Let me give you an example of the research I did. Again, I was doing research on mobile applications, sustainability of mobile applications in rural contexts. So one of the things I needed to do was to provide a description of what works and what does not work in a rural context. What is necessary and what is not necessary in a rural context in terms of healthcare. So in terms of healthcare, what was it that was going to guide me? I wasn't just going to write questions and start saying, hey, what do you need? Several, you are in this village, what do you need? No. I needed a theoretical framework that was going to guide me. I needed a theory that was going to guide me. So to that, I went to development theory. And specifically, I picked the livelihood framework, which guides you on being able to pick what are the needs, what are the vulnerabilities of rural community members. So it's a theoretical framework that was going to guide me in that sense. 2, after I implemented in designing the sustainable mobile application, I wasn't going to design it by going to sit down and ask users, what do you need? No. There must be some theoretical framework that guided me. So there I went to a model, a model that was designed called STOF. That this model was specifically designed to develop profitable or sustainable mobile applications. Yeah. So I used this framework to help me design and then evaluate. To design and evaluate. So these two theories, STOF and livelihood framework, became my theoretical framework. But although my research was on the qualitative side, this is how the theoretical they guided me to actually now go ahead and design and then evaluate. Okay? So the other one, development theory, may help me understand the rural context, developing context. The other one helped me understand the process of designing and evaluation. Looking for sustainability as my overall objective. That is the importance of a theoretical framework. The questions are not coming just from your head. They are being guided by this framework. So whether it is qualitative side or quantitative, a theoretical framework is extremely, extremely important. Lack of ability to make use of theoretical framework logically. So also selecting the right theoretical framework to use, the right theories to use to guide you as you go into the field. Then a lack of acquaintance with available research techniques. Yeah. So here I would say, again, work very well with your supervisor in using the available, first of all, formulation of a research problem, formulation of research question, and or hypothesis.
I'm busy.
I think let's mute Aggie. Basic concepts concerning testing of hypothesis. So we have the null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. Yeah. If we want to, sorry, we want to check the time. Yeah, we're still okay. So we have, remember, the null hypothesis, which is not making an assumption. So if we say a null hypothesis is normally stated as HO and an alternative hypothesis as HA. Yeah. So here we have some examples. Let me see if I can get something that is a bit better. So we have an alternative hypothesis that the population mean is not equal to 100. It could be more or less. Then you have an alternative hypothesis that the alternative population is greater than 100. Then you have the alternative hypothesis that the population mean is less than 100. Okay, so these are different hypotheses. Let's first come back to this one. So here we are thinking in terms of, you have two methods, A and B. And we want to determine the superiority of the methods. Yeah, we want to determine the superiority of the method. So that one is basically a null hypothesis because you are not insinuating that this method is superior to the other. So now, if you're not insinuating that this method is superior to the other, but you want to test it to find out which is inferior or which is superior, you come up with the alternative hypothesis. So the alternative hypothesis, let us say we are measuring population mean. Yeah. And we are measuring this method, which is supposed to come up with a population mean. So the alternative hypothesis, you say, if it brings this result, it may be less or more. If it brings this result, it means it's greater. If it brings this result, it means it's less. So that these alternative hypotheses, by testing out these two methods, we determine on which method is more superior in measuring population mean. Yeah, that's what the alternative hypothesis come to in testing our hypothesis when you have a null hypothesis. Okay. This one is basically repeating what we've been talking about on measuring the hypothesis. Do we have any question as far as hypotheses are concerned? I know.
Doctor.
Yes.
I'm kind of requesting you to pardon me on the meaning of hypothesis because I kind of lost the connection at some point. I lost the.
Let me go back to the very beginning. What is a hypothesis? Yeah? Basically, a hypothesis is a statement. It's a statement which is insinuating a solution to a problem. It is insinuating a solution to a problem. It's asserting something, but this assertion must be tested if it is true or false. Now, let me show you examples of hypotheses from the article Multitasking with Information Technology. So they had, let me give a background to this article. This article is was looking at the hedonic experience users may experience as they use these multisensory technologies. So it's a lot of words, but it's very simple. Multisensory technology is, for example, my mobile phone. My mobile phone gives me a graphic picture when I look at it. It allows me to touch the screen, to manipulate it using the screen. I have applications there which, for example, WhatsApp, where I can receive a text message and a video. I have TikTok here, and so on and so forth. This is a typical example of a multisensory technology that I'm using. Now, they wanted to measure the hedonic experience. That means how much pleasure I get. How much pleasure I get as I use. So these are several hypotheses they asserted. They say a multisensory hedonic activity generates more positive emotion valence compared to a unisensory activity. Okay, that is a hypothesis. A multisensory hedonic activity generates more positive emotional valence compared to a unisensory activity. So they are basically saying if I'm doing an activity that involves me watching and listening, I get more pleasure than a unisensory activity, maybe texting. So if I am watching, if I am on Twitter, for example, which allows me to watch, to listen, and maybe even comment, I get more pleasure doing that than using the SMS application where I'm simply typing a message and I may not get my response now. I may get it tomorrow. Do you hear the assertion they are saying? Hello?
Yes, doctor.
Yes,
Yes, that is an assertion that his hypothesis is making. Now, this assertion begs that I prove. I can't just make it and take it to be gospel truth. I must prove it. So it's guiding me to now go ahead and test this out. Is this true? Now, if you read that article, you'll find that that article, the researchers went ahead and carried out a laboratory experiment to determine if this is true or false. That is the hypothesis. Is that clear?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, doctor, it's clear.
Do we have any other question? We have any other question?
Doctor,
Yes, please.
could you please explain to me again the difference between the null hypothesis and alternative?
Okay. Here, the null hypothesis actually gave us an example. Let me share it again. Give me a minute. Okay, let me come to this very specific one here. That is null. Here, let's say we have the example here being given is two methods are being compared, but to determine which is superior, determine which you have method A and method B, and both methods are equally good, then it is assumed that this can be termed as a null hypothesis. Take an example. We say method A and method B are if someone phrased it that method A and method B are both equally good, but we need, then it is assumed that can be assumed that this is a null hypothesis. Method A and method B are equally good. That's a null hypothesis. But it, however, needs to be proved. Is it true they are both equally good? Take an example. Let me give you another example. We say, gender does. Both male and female students are equally good in the field of ICT. That's a null hypothesis. Yeah, both male and female students are equally good in the field of ICT. That's a null hypothesis. It is, however, begging to be proved. It's begging to be proved. Is it true they are both equally good, or there's one who is superior? There's one gender that is superior to the other. Now, this is unlike a directional hypothesis. For example, the one we saw with multitasking, which is saying multisensory activities provide a higher hedonic experience than a unisensory activity. That one is directional. Solomon, have I answered the question?
Yes, you have. But just so I believe I'm clear, my understanding is the null hypothesis assumes the two theories
or the two variables
are of equal measure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There was somebody else's hand that was up. Was it Henry? Henry, did you have a question? Hello, Henry, are you there?
No, doctor, I have no question.
Okay.
Hello?
It was Ndaula, sorry. Yes, Henry Ndaula.
Hello,
Yes,
you can hear me?
yes, now I can hear you.
Okay. I just had a quick one. In some contexts, in some research, people use the term thesis statement.
Yes.
Is it the same as hypothesis?
A thesis statement. No, it's not the same as a hypothesis. It's not the same.
Okay.
This is not the same. Let me see. If I've just quickly Googled it actually. It says a thesis statement is a concise, often 1-2 sentence summary of the main argument or point of an essay or research paper, typically found at the end of the introduction. So it is not really a necessary thing, as long the most important thing I would say is if regarding to that, as you write your work, and I think this one will be key point when I show you how to write a chapter structure, especially your chapter 1. A key point to note is when you're writing your work, when you're writing your research, when you begin to write, you need to be very clear about what you're doing. Very, very clear about what you're doing. What is my research area? What is my research focus? What am I focusing on? That when I write my statement at the introduction, immediately the reader knows Henry is going to focus on this topic, on this area, and this is the area he's actually going to tackle. Although your problem statement may not come out immediately, but immediately somebody knows this is what Henry is going to focus on. So that would be in the first 2 paragraphs of your introduction. Actually, the second paragraph of your introduction should let the reader know immediately what your focus is. Okay? So let us say you are doing research in the field of it's e-learning in a university, and you're focusing on designing something for cognitive learning. Immediately, rather than in the introduction, now you start talking about cognitive learning, the history of it, ICT. That is, you're going too far. So the thesis statement essentially would be, immediately as you start, you want to let the reader know the importance of e-learning in the teaching of e-learning technologies in teaching in universities or in the education field. And then maybe the next thing you want to talk about the issue of appropriate designs for appropriate contexts. So there immediately somebody knows this person intends to design an e-learning app for a specific context. Maybe if you're even at that point, you mention universities, immediately the person gets to know. That would be the thesis statement. Have you understood?
Yes,
Henry?
yes, thank you, Doctor.
Do we have any other question?
Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
I have a question. I don't know whether you already talked about it, but for purposes of understanding, if I get something from Google, like when I go to Google and type in maybe a definition, maybe examples, how am I supposed to cite that one? Since you've been talking about citation and articles.
Now, here it is very important. Let me first stop sharing. Let me first stop sharing. And specifically what Aggie is talking about. Give me a minute. I'm going to share my screen. Specifically, what Aggie is talking about is why can I not see? This is what Aggie is talking about. So let's say I want to get a definition of case study. Case study research design. And here it has given me one automatically. Like case study research design is an in-depth contextualized investigation of a specific blah, 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 blah. Now, Aggie's question is, how do I reference this? My first question is my first guideline on this is this a scholarly source? The answer to that is no. In research, we limit ourselves to scholarly articles. Okay? Scholarly articles. So my advice to you is one, either use the e-resources. I think the library has a number of those, or introduce yourself to Google Scholar. As far as research is concerned, only and only use Google Scholar. Have all of you encountered Google Scholar?
Yes.
Yes. So So this is where you would get your scholar at. So if I want to get the definition of case study strategy. So here I have an article. This was published. It says case study as a research strategy, some ambiguous. Then what is case study? This was in 2004. Blah, blah, blah. What is a case study? Now you notice these all come with articles attached to them. So let's say if I decide to use this. Sorry, no, this one is not, may not be able. What is case study? I can use this one. So if you download it, you download the article and it helps you, it gives you, so you download it and save it. So now here I've downloaded it. You take time to read the article. Once you've read it and you want to cite it, Aggie, here's the very nice thing about using Google Scholar. Do you notice this thing that says cite?
Yes.
Yeah? Click on it. Can you see the window that has popped up? Cite?
Yes,
So first go back, Doctor, where you have seen cite. I've not
where it says
seen it.
cite.
Yes.
Click. Do you see the window that has popped up?
Yes, I see.
Yes, Doctor.
It even gives you what you can reference. You can simply copy and paste. If you have EndNote, you simply export it to EndNote. And EndNote gives you the full reference list. Yeah?
Yes.
Yes. So you have the article, you've downloaded it already, you can read it at leisure, and then Google helps you even to cite. Google Scholar, that is.
Doctor, does that mean if I cite, for example, this article, I'm going to be included in here cited by?
No. Or here, or if you publish your work, if your work is published, they will also show who cited your work.
Okay. This only comes after your work has been published.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Google Scholar should become your friend. Any other question?
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Is there any other question?
Jivuna has a question in the chat. I don't know whether you
Let me
can
see.
see it.
Let me see. Let me see. How do we access the past papers of this module? Yes, Chivuna, thank you for that question. It's a very good one. Now, normally the final question, the final assessment is a concept paper. So in other words, it's a take home. It's not a sit down. Have I answered your question?
Doctor, you've tried to answer, but much as the final one is a concept paper, but what can we use as guidance for reading? Because much as we aim to read and understand, but also we are looking for marks.
Yes, I understand. Okay, let me see if I can get some and share with you some good concept papers, and I share with you.
Would be humble, Doctor.
Okay.
I'll appreciate.
Okay. Do you have any other question? Remember, there's a group which has
Doctor, just one.
Yes, please.
Doctor, thanks for sharing.
Yes.
I just opened the Google Scholar. Well, it's my first time to see it. Thanks for that advice. But when I opened, I'm seeing articles and then case law. So basically, could you elaborate on that? Because I'm seeing articles and case law as radio buttons. I think you can check for articles and you can check for case law. So I just wanted to elaborate the difference between these two.
Articles and case. Can I see what you're seeing? Is it possible for me to see what you're seeing so that I can? When you open Google Scholar, yes.
Yes.
I think Google is giving you options of what you want to search. So articles.
Yes.
So the articles is you're looking for. You're basically looking for articles. Case law, I've never attempted to try that. You can see even when you click it, it says federal court, California courts. So I think that one is of no use to us. We want articles.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks for that guidance.
Yes. Do we have any other question?
Mine is not a question, Doctor. I just request that after the lecture we are shared this recording, because previous lectures have been recorded, but I don't know whether it's only me finding a challenge in